A little bit. It takes some finagling sometimes, but it's gotten a little bit better. But
you need a lot more?
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Looking at these graphs, it looks like everything's actually pretty stable and or flat or even reducing except for the drugs.
Yeah.
That is what you're seeing too?
Yeah, and that's unfortunately something it's hard to get a handle on. It's just so easily accessible, and it's just difficult.
Comparatively speaking, the juvenile arrest and youth arrest are relatively high in the Heights. Any thought on that?
Not really. I think it's just happens to be where these people live. No particular reason why.
One of the comparisons when you do that, the Heights is the Heights Task Force, and that's how it's listed. There's like 8 or 10 other task forces in town, so you gotta take total population and compare it, because if you do that, the Heights usually runs like in teens, low teens, or compared to the rest of the city per capita. And I think the only one that last year when I figured it was higher was calls for service. And calls for service can be anything.
It can be anything, yeah. Just anyone that calls the police department.
So it's kind of misleading because they're comparing us to like, well, I think in Ward 1 there's like 4 task forces. And so Ward 1 they all split up those numbers. So it makes the Heights look a little bad until you actually look at that and compare apples to apples.
So as far as total area, the Heights has a larger area than most.
Well, population-wise, see, the Heights Task Force is the whole Heights, but there's all those other task forces that those numbers are broke into. But when you take, the Heights is like 30% of the population of Billings, and when you start throwing those numbers in, that's how we come out with a lot better than that shows.
Could you kind of summarize where it's at with the child that got killed by the bullet on Sandstone? I know that finally somebody, there was some accountability, but I kind of lost track of what I heard about that.
The Council Rock Park.
Right.
No, it wasn't Council Rock Park.
Oh, okay, that I don't have any.
Okay.
That was the School District 2 parking lot, not Castle Rock Park.
We want the school district to understand that. Okay.
Any other questions for Cody? If not, we're gonna let him get back to work.
I just wanted to say, I think the police do a fantastic job in this town, especially out here in the Heights.
Appreciate it.
You've got a good police presence out here, and that would tend to ward off the thugs that go someplace else. And
Cool. Sure.
really happy with you guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Cody.
Yeah, thank you.
Be safe out there. Okay, yeah, we gotta do the minutes. Anybody wanna make a motion to approve the minutes, the November meeting?
I think Ed Arnold should, because it was most of his talking that was going on.
Is everything
Hey,
right?
I didn't bring my yellow list tonight.
But he brought it to my house, so I could be really accurate.
Say what?
You wanna make the motion, Ed?
Yeah, I move we accept the minutes.
Ed and Ed. Take a vote on it, how many? Approve it?
I
Opposed? Yes, it's an aye, I didn't hear any opposed. Okay, so I think what we're gonna do now is just do a fast report from legislature, the county, everything. So we got the school district and we got the city council, so give you each like 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
The school district asked for 10, and I told them they can have 10.
They can have ours.
We might just take 5 minutes. Okay.
Okay, so you wanna go first, school district?
Because you're
marketing materials for it, just explaining what it is. We're rebranding the Career Center. Great.
Everything career, we're trying to bring everything kind of under one umbrella. So my name is Bo Brunsma, I'm the career outreach director for Billings Public Schools. So we, for a long time, our community has been really good supporting career technical education, as we call it. So a lot of people think of the Career Center when they think of that. But all of our high schools have career technical education opportunities. We do stuff in the middle school, and really, education is really good at using their own terminology and acronyms and things that we understand. But sometimes it can be really confusing for the community. And so we wanted to bring this all under one umbrella. So we got a couple of goals with this. It's called Future Ready. And so what this is basically an initiative that we are trying to do a couple things. Number one, we're trying to reach the home with better information, more informed information about careers, post-secondary, military, just all the options that students have. Number one, we want to promote what they have in middle school and high school so that they can start testing out and see, do I like this? Am I maybe interested in construction? The big thing is we're trying to eliminate what I think a lot of people in this know, or not eliminate, but try to help students with the part that's the hardest for a lot of them, and that is the networking. And so, mom's an engineer, dad's a doctor. What are the chances one of those three kids ends up in medicine or STEM or something related to that? We all know that it's kind of who you know, not what you know. And so really we're trying to, in the schools, tease out innate interest among students on careers and help them network and try out those opportunities. And so starting in the middle school, really focus on career awareness and exploration. High school, we get them testing out things. We bring people into our schools to do lunch and learns, guest speakers, all sorts of things that we events that we center around trying to get students access to businesses in town. And then as they get older, there's opportunities. If you really know what you want to do, we're trying to be the entity that kind of opens the doors for that. So my job as career outreach director, I work on the business side. We have 4 career coaches, including, so there's one at Skyview, one at Senior, one at West, and then one at the Career Center that are completely dedicated to this type of work. And so Future Ready has, like I said, has a couple of goals. Number one is about the career awareness and everything I talked about. Number 2 is trying to really reduce that dichotomy and the idea that you're either going into a career, or you're going to go to college. It's been a bad narrative for a long time for a lot of different reasons. Some of it was good. People were like, hey, if I want a great life, I should go to college. That was a decent formula at one time. But the way that the economy and everything has changed, there's a lot of great options for students that might include more than a high school diploma, but less than a 4-year degree. We still do everything. We have dual credit classes, AP exams. We want to make sure that all those students that want to go to college can, but we're also trying to provide more opportunities as a school district to have students have opportunities, that don't include college, that might include it later. So one of the big things that we're doing, Future Ready, as like a brand, and so it's kind of an initiative. And then as I said, we're trying to get more information to households because we really believe that the kitchen table is one of the best classrooms anyone has. And sometimes there's not a kitchen table for anymore for some of our students. And so really we're trying to give information to students and parents, have them know what's available to them, and then as I said, as they show interest in things, start opening doors. One of the things that I think we're really lucky is that history has dealt us this situation where you can't go to any business in town and not see, whether it's an entry-level position or positions that require a professional degree, pretty much everyone's hurting for employees. And so that's provided the school a unique opportunity where our students are getting access to exposure to careers, and businesses are starting to really open up to the idea of younger people coming into their business because they don't have the employees, and they're either planting seeds that they hope grow into plants and eventually become work in their industry or for their company, or they're trying to actually hire our students and offer them opportunities right out of high school. We have a lot of students who are obtaining $20, $25 an hour jobs because of some of the businesses that have come in and presented the opportunity that they have in their industry or company. So I'm going to show there's a big marketing piece to this that we've obtained all this marketing stuff, or most of it, from grant money, and so we receive money every year from Office of Public Instruction to kind of do some of these innovative things. And so I'm going to show one of the videos. It's a really short clip. It's supposed to be designed for students, but it'll show it'll show 6 of the pathways that we have in Billings Public Schools. No words, just the highlights that, young kids were kind of trying to tap into how they consume information. So let me pull this up. Hope there's 1 second. Myself. There we go. So as you can see there, those are 6 of the pathways that we have in Billings Public Schools. We started with the pathways that the school board kind of said, hey, these are really important to our community and really important. They're high wage, high need jobs. So you'll see health sciences on there, construction, agriculture, STEM, hospitality is a big one. And so there's videos that go along with each of these pathways. They feature students, they feature teachers, they feature some of our business partners that have started partnerships with our school district and really benefited either with having a student out or getting involved in in any type of career activity. And so we have a video for that. We've got an overview of kind of what Future Ready is, and it's kind of all of the stakeholders involved and kind of what the idea behind it is. And then we've got one video that we dedicated to all the people within our school district and our community that makes that happen. We call it our Village video, and it really shows how much our teachers, counselors, administrators, community members, businesses, how we're all working together. And we don't really care, like I said, we don't really care what a student, where they, whether they go to college or they go to work. We're trying to facilitate the opportunity for them to get there if that's what they want to do. So I don't know if there's if you have any questions. So I can send this to whoever. There's a nice PDF that I can send to send out to the group that will show all of the videos that you guys can just click on. You'll have access to all 9 videos, and this will be something we get allocation every year with the grant that we have from OPI, and so we're going to continue to build out the other pathways. We've got one that's going to focus on college preparation and the military. We've got one that's going to focus on some of the good stuff that our SPED vocational programs do, and yeah, that's I guess a summation of what we're doing with Future Ready.
And Teresa's got my email, so then I'll send it out to the whole group.
Yes, of course. So Bo and his team have done a great job. The marketing that they have been able to produce is excellent. In fact, last week you were in Chicago.
Yeah, so one of our programs, it's called Build Montana. It's a partnership with the Montana contractors, the Montana equipment dealers, local companies including RDO Equipment, Tractor and Equipment, Knife River, Tri-State Trucking Equipment, and Cop Construction. So they have basically an internship that they develop where students apply. They have to be on track to graduate. They have to be taking a few classes in the construction or automotive or something that shows that they have an interest. But they go out for 2 hours during their second semester of their senior year. They get credit to be there, and they have different construction experiences on what it looks like to work in a heavy equipment dealership in sales, diesel technician, drone technology, all the opportunities there. With Knife River, they go out to multiple experiences with them and all the companies involved. And then at the end, it's really an exploration. They're not paid to be there, and for the companies, it's probably costing them money for time and resources that they're dedicating. But last year, we had 10 students that were in the class, and 6 of them ended up having they ended up jumping into the opportunities that they were offered. But all 10 students basically had a job offer from one of those companies or had an opportunity if they would have wanted it. And we won a national award along with all of the partners that are involved with it from the Associated Equipment Distributors for their workforce program of the year. They're doing they had people there that were policy people that were they're basically trying to duplicate this program. And the school, obviously the school district, our students are the ones that are benefiting from it, but the construction industry, a lot of those companies are fierce competitors out there in the place of business. They're trying to sell equipment. There's a Cat dealer and a John Deere dealer that are fierce competitors, but they come together to show students what is available in the industry, and they don't fight over the kids. They just say, hey, if you want to be a diesel mechanic, Cat tractor equipment and RDO have opportunities for you. Which one do you want? And let's get you in there and get you started. And so we've got students that are making $25 an hour now in a construction, and it's all the way from entry level, maybe no college involved at all, to someone who's in a 2-year program while they're working, to someone who was in the program for 2 years and decided he wanted to go pursue a 4-year degree and just had a little bit more money in his pocket when he went and did that. So it's a really cool program that's getting some national attention, but it's really a kudos to the construction industry in our town, because they've kind of taken their competitive spirits out of it and said, hey, we just need to get more kids to this industry. There's good paying jobs, and wherever they want to end up, we'll help them get there.
So what's the school district doing to make this more acceptable to Heights students?
Yeah, so
because it takes them 20 minutes to 30 minutes to get from here to there.
So we have some students with a lot of the opportunities that don't ever go to the Career Center. I know a lot of people think the Career Center is the place for career technical education. We have tried, we have a career coach at Skyview that works directly with Skyview students, and we really try to do what's best for the student. I always say, I'm in central office, so it's a little bit easier, but out in the schools, I try to make sure that everyone involved is trying to take off their school colors and say, hey, what's best for this student? If it's not going to the Career Center and it's getting into Build Montana as a senior, it kind of depends. It's almost, if you've heard about individualized learning, we're really trying to tailor what does this student want and need, rather than what building are they going to be in. And if it's the best thing for them is to go to the automotive program at the Career Center, that's what we advise them to do. But I think we're really trying to take some of that competitiveness that's existed between the Career Center and the homeschool out of the equation and just say, where does this kid want to end up and what's the best place for them? Does that make sense?
They didn't tell me how those kids from Skyview are going to get over there in 30 minutes. So
I can speak to that.
they build houses up here by Skyview all year long, all the time, but there's no Career Center carpentry class up here, but there's one on the west end. It would be very easy to do the same thing up here, and construction involves a lot of different phases that you can get a lot of these youngsters in, but they gotta go all the way over there to do it, and then they still have to go to classes here, so.
Right, yes, in fact, we have that situation before us right now. The Career Center is in a state of it needs major repairs done to the point where it would cost less to rebuild. And so we're looking at different options as far as what do we do right now? How are we going to handle this? Are we going to try and just repair it, keep it there? Are we looking for another location? Are we looking to renovate a different building, or are we going to build new? Our planning and development team is working really hard on as far as trying to figure that out. And I looked today, and it takes the fastest somebody from Skyview can get there is 24 minutes. And from west, it's 8 minutes. From senior, it takes, they're about in the middle, it takes about 12 or 14 minutes. So for me, being from the Heights, it's really important to me to have something centralized. And I don't know how you guys feel, what are your thoughts about that as far as the Career Center? And splitting it up, we've looked at that option too. We feel kind of like it would be more expensive to run 2 separate career centers. Would we have an entire Career Center here and then an entire Career Center here and duplicate all of our equipment, rather than trying to get something central, relocated?
Well, if you're building houses, I'm looking at construction. If you're building houses, they're building on both ends of town.
Sure. Yeah.
I can address that too. So my first year with the district, we actually ran this to ground because there was an appetite in the Heights to say, hey, we have students that don't end up going to the Career Center construction class, and of course, being close to the Career Center is important for that program because they have to get there, and then we have to transport them from the Career Center. So of course, all of the Career Center houses are going to be on the west end. And so the biggest issue that the district faces is right now that HBA Billings does all of they buy the properties in advance so that we have a couple, I think they do it at least 2 years in advance, so we have the property secured. They do all the financing. Stockman Bank, Wayne Nelson's very involved with that part. And so there's a lot of in-kind donations of time to make that project happen. So I approached NeighborWorks, who is someone in town, and they actually run the Great Falls program. There's 2 houses that are built in Great Falls. One high school does one, so it's done elsewhere. And as far as the HVA is concerned, and as far as NeighborWorks or entities like that, we just haven't found someone who's willing to step up and say, hey, we would help finance this. We would help figure out, it takes, like I said, in-kind donations of time from people who understand how to finance, how to buy property, do all the things involved, get the permits. That's, I think, part of that was a big obstacle, is just finding that entity. So it's not that idea can't exist. It's just we haven't, after my first year with the district, when we couldn't find that entity, we haven't reopened that conversation.
I'd just like to make a comment that after Project Recode, the new zoning laws in the city of Billings, within the city of Billings, has deterred building of new homes. Majority of the builders, and I have the statistics elsewhere, but 2,400 new homes were built in the county, and there were less than 600 that were built in the city. And a big portion of that is due to Project Recode, zoning, some of the requirements that are being enforced, and so that may be part of the reason that you're not having a success with financing these properties, because they're more expensive to build in the city limits.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Well, I have a comment. My cousin works with Habitat for Humanity in Helena, and he specifically, and they do structured insulated panels, but he specifically teaches high school kids. That's part of the commitment. I talked to Tim Stark, who's working with Patty Webster, and suggested that. Tim seemed to like the idea. You have Patty, who's doing quite a bit of construction. Some of it will be done by Tim. Also, the Salvation Army has 28 little sheds that they're going to put up.
We're trying to get in on that.
Yeah. So, and I talked to Colin last week about doing that. So I would get in on the projects that are happening if there is funding for it.
Okay, so if we don't have any, well, we got all kinds of comments and questions. Okay, go ahead.
How does it work with children with IEPs who have learning disabilities but they want to do something like this?
So we don't really usually look at that. So how do I say this? We offer things at schools, like events and activities that any student can come to. We don't say, hey, you have to be in the construction class to be able to come to this. So we don't do that. We have a lot of students with IEPs who end up taking a lot of our career technical education classes. There's opportunities within their classes I mentioned we're going to highlight some of the good things that are happening in our SPED vocational programs. And so I mean, we don't really identify students that way. We listen to them on what they're interested in and what they really want to do. And one example would be, we had a student last year who had some communication issues. It was in her IEP. It was like, hey, she can't be in a job that she needs to talk to people. She was really interested in working outside and being in nature. She liked animals and plants. We ended up finding an opportunity for her during the summer outside of school. It wasn't connected to credit or anything like that. But she ended up working at Canyon Creek Nursery, and she liked being there. They liked having her there, and so we don't really think about it that way. These are opportunities for every student, and we're just trying to open doors for them. And there is some point where the student has to go out, present themselves, and go get the job. But a lot of our students, one of the things I've seen is that if they're interested in it, and they're telling us like, hey, I want to learn about this, they go out there, they present their best self, and they obtain a lot of these opportunities, and then they succeed in them, because it's like we kind of say they're getting to kind of choose their life rather than, hey, I'm in this job that I don't really like, that I'm trying, I'm making money, but it's just what's available to me. I think having them come to us, tell us what they want to do, it's really opened a lot of doors for basically every student in our district. It doesn't matter if they have an IEP or not. Does that make sense?
Well, hang on. So I just don't think that actually answers the question.
Okay.
So I think the challenge, and I'm not speaking for them, I'm speaking just of what I've observed in working with kids in foster care, is when they have an IEP, they have a certain number of minutes of direct instruction that they have to get, which precludes them from going on job shadowing and mentoring opportunities and being off-site And many homeschools the Career Center can support IEPs, because they do have gen ed classes there, but many homeschools will fight them. I mean, there's all these practical barriers that make it difficult for kids who might be behind or might have learning disabilities to actually access career education in the course of a day.
So I don't know enough about that to know like where the limitations are on that. I just know that that I work closely with a lot of the SPED teachers that are trying to provide vocational opportunities. They have access to the same businesses that any student has access to. And so if there needs to be some adjustment to how we free up more time, that is one of the limiting factors for a lot of students is, do they have enough time in their schedule to make it worth it to go out during their school day? For some students, that answer, IEP or not, is no. They might have slipped up and not passed their math class since their sophomore year. So that I would say I just need to take a better look at that.
I do think it's a barrier. It's certainly one that I see for kids in foster care.
Can I ask a question back? I know I'm taking a lot of time, but
Yeah, you're way past your 10 minutes.
so do you think that's something that is required like in their IEP and that's like a systems issue, or do you think that is that like a state law issue, or what do you think?
IEP is a federal law.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like a federal law is limiting their ability to do that. Where do you think the pitch point is?
I think it's very case by case, right? So I think you have to write an IEP that allows students to meet their educational goals. I think the question is what you count as their instructional time, right? So if they have a certain amount of math that they have to get time, does that have to be in the classroom or can it be on a job site? Can it be applied math versus direct instruction math? It's finding those ways to open up opportunities to integrate learning into day-to-day practice so that you can support kids and not deny them barriers. Because they're still entitled to access the same programs that the district offers on any basis. And so I think it's very case by case, but I think often the way that time is calculated makes a difference.
We can have a side conversation. I get what your question is now.
And like part of the problem is when you're dealing in these type of jobs. I have a child that loves agriculture and loves animals, but her IEP, she has a reading comprehension and she has a processing delay. So how accessible is it for people like that? Because you can tell her directions and she won't understand right away. And she can read them.
Can you carry this on with him afterwards? Because we got to move on.
I will stay afterwards because there's a couple other people. I apologize for taking so long.
One last question, because I heard, sorry, your name was? Teresa from the school board mentioned how the Career Center, which I think is a good thing, my son and daughter went there, but is beyond repairable in the sense that it's going to cost more to rebuild. So I heard a $50 million bond that we're going to have to do. Can you speak quickly to the Career Center and the disrepair and how it got there? Because I know we passed a lot of maintenance bonds for the school, and now I'm hearing it's in disrepair that you can't repair it, it's cheaper to build it.
Sure, I'm sorry, I can't speak to that, but I can find out for you.
When will we hear more about the fact that it has to be replaced and will be coming to the
We have
public?
some options to present to the public as our first solution.
Okay.
You have to remember that school district funding is absolutely separated. So the bonds that you pass for elementary and middle school cannot be used at the high school. You've
I
never asked
understand that.
anything for
No, I understand that.
And also, that the Career Center was a wonderful program, but an absolutely crappy building. It was crappy to start with. It basically was a full barn, unacceptable, horrible place for kids to be in school. I mean, I'm delighted. It should never been built. Kids should never been in it. It's a disgrace to the city of Billings to put kids in a pole barn that's not insulated and doesn't have a
That answer your question?
It answers my question.
All right, thank you. Thank you. So, that's what we heard from the school district. I'm thinking you're gonna run into a lot of questions.
That's also
Okay.
true.
Marshall Blunt,
I guess.
code enforcement.
We can take a
He's
poll.
got 3 minutes.
Does anybody have any questions for code enforcement or anything resulting in violation? I guess.
That's just the start.
I know, it depends on really how in depth I really can get in with this. I mean, we'll start here.
There is a note under the announcements about who you call, depending on what thing is sitting on your road. 'Cause we had a problem at the Salvation Army where a trailer where somebody was dealing drugs out of a trailer and the Salvation Army couldn't get it moved. So Ed gave me the information and I put it in here. So if the trailer is the responsibility of code enforcement, if it's a motor vehicle that drives, it's the responsibility of the police department. Am I reporting that correctly, Ed?
Any motorized vehicle is dealt with by the volunteer patrol.
Right.
That's the crime prevention center. You can also report online. It's not a very complicated report, but it's an actual police report.
Okay, but if it's the trailer, so,
If it's a trailer or campers sitting with no motor, then it goes to code enforcement for tagging and removal if it's being stored on a public street.
and the thing that we found out is people have had a lot of trouble getting code enforcement to respond. So where they've been successful, at Salvation Army, the mayor turned it in North Park, the Board of Wine representatives turned it in. So call Roy and Jennifer, yeah, we're on code enforcement doesn't show up. And but they do respond to your city council members.
Yeah.
Okay, Marshall, that's what you got.
Basically, I have just some packets I put together. It has my business card, some kind of just general info. Anything you guys have questions about, new to the Heights or anything like that, do's and don'ts, where you can store things, what you can have on your lawn, motorized vehicles, junk vehicles and stuff like that, things that we deal with. We also deal with graffiti as well. We have specialized officers in graffiti, cage structures, and all that sort of stuff. I am your guys' go-to person for the Heights, and I also take care of Rebird Ranch as well. Kind of far away out of the scale there, but I mainly zoned in the Heights. I recently had North Park as well, but now since we have all of our officers, we have 7 total officers, 2 of which are specialized and 5 throughout the whole entire city. So you guys have me from basically here on out, and I can kind of answer any questions. I'll leave these, they have my business cards with them. I'll also leave a handful of business cards as well. If you guys want to take one, take a few, grab, give them to your friends, whomever. I'd be more than happy to take calls, emails. I work 6:30 to 5, Monday through Thursday, so 10-hour shifts. But I guess, any quick questions while I have my small time? Yes.
Quick question. When you guys go and do an abatement on a house and you guys send the crew out there, you clean up all the garbage, you do all that, who monitors that house to make sure they don't trash it back again? And if it has been trashed again, why haven't you guys done anything about it?
So if it does get trashed again, so basically with our whole new abatement procedure that goes through the court system, we have recently just updated our forms. It took us a couple of months to kind of get things all in order. When we do get an abatement now through the court, we have a year. That abatement lasts us an entire year. We have an expiration date. So recently some of our ones that we just did in like December and November, those ones unfortunately did not have the abatement on it for the whole year, so now upcoming ones do. And so now we have that whole year that we can kind of keep it going.
The head, Tina?
Yes, Tina Hoger.
Tina said that it was a year from November, it was a full year abatement thing.
So I know you guys are talking about 824 Dorothy. Unfortunately, that one does not have that on it.
Tina said it did.
It does not. So the wording in our abatement, we have to try to go through it. Unfortunately, now we had to redo it through legal, and that's what we wanted to make sure that we were doing everything correctly. But now everything in this upcoming year, if it gets to that abatement procedure again, then yes, it will be for a given year. It'll expire the year following. So I know you guys are in a tight boat, but I was actually just out there today and I got to send out another letter as well, even on top of my other letter. So
But they did pick up the garbage.
You're working on that project
yes,
again?
it's another active case, and I've had an active case on it for about a month.
How long will it be before you go to court to get the date?
That one will probably be another 4 weeks, so I'm probably thinking the March court date. Maybe you're looking at.
And then you'll have it good for a year.
Yes.
Okay, any other quick questions?
Yep.
All right, thank you, Marshall.
I mean, it's quick,
Pass that stuff out. I don't think we've got enough big hands.
I know if you guys need any more, I'll leave them up here. If you guys want to take them, be courteous.
What do they name us?
Basically, the handouts cover just, there's neighborhood preservation.
Here, this is an easy way to do it.
There you go. There you go.
Just make sure I get a copy, so I get it in a minute.
Yeah. In the minutes, I mean, just do's and don'ts, trailers, information that we gotta have on there, graffiti as well. Yeah, then if anybody has any quick questions, I mean, I'll be answering to the side.
Thanks, Marshall.
If not, give me a call. I'm available, so.
Jennifer and Roy, you got anything really important?
All right, thank you guys so much.
Let's see, this council has elected certain committees now, so I'm the chair of the legislative committee. We're meeting, not the legislators in, that's why you don't see your legislators here, because they're all up in Helena. And so we're in communication with them about lots of different laws as they just buzz through the system. So if you have any particular questions about that, we can try and answer them. Typical voting on different uses of land and stuff like that. I can't think of anything offhand. Jennifer, you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the big, sorry, I don't mean to talk to you
Oh,
about
missing sidewalks.
I think the big issue that's going to be in front of the community over the next coming weeks is the rec center in the South Billings Urban Renewal District. So right now, at the master plan level, it's a $113 million project. There's been discussion about what the ongoing subsidy for that will look like. Right now, it's between about $700,000 to $1 million a year. Contrary to, I think, some representations that have been made, that's best, right? It doesn't get better over time. It doesn't work its way to profitability. It will, the subsidy will get wider over time. And then residents and non-residents will pay to use it as well. So I think there's going to need to be real conversations about that. I've raised concerns about prioritizing those sorts of investments over public safety, which I still think is a primary priority for our community. We don't control all the strings, but I also don't think that we can sit by and let people get murdered and assaulted on weekends just because other jurisdictions don't want to act. So I anticipate that is what council will wrestle with heavily in the coming weeks. It will certainly be the core of our strategic planning retreat this spring. But remember that when we talk about the rec center, that's only one piece of the ask that will go to voters. There's still the issue of how we fund ongoing parks and rec maintenance, as well as parks capital. And so right now, the number that is floating around to do a bond for parks capital, a bond for the rec center, a mill levy for the rec center, and a mill levy for ongoing parks, it would add for the median home about $250 a year to taxes.
Yeah, it's a medium home is
That's
248.
scary enough right there, thanks, Jennifer. Okay, when we left in November, this meeting was supposed to be for you people out there to tell us what you want to have for speakers to come, to work on, to make the Heights a better place, and also the city at the same time. So,
Can I make one legislative comment? Just very quickly.
okay.
I apologize. If anybody's interested in finding out who your legislators are, what committees that they serve on, there's a book that's out. There's also an app that you can download on your phone, and I will give Pam this page. She can take a picture of it and send it out in the minutes. So if anybody's interested in finding out what legislative committees your representatives are on, it'll be on that app. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All righty, so who wants to go first?
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
This map that you guys have in here,
Yeah. That's, Frank asked me to put that in because that's when it rains sold, so that's a good place to start.
it says that off of Dorothy Lane, it's gonna be Ward 1.
Yep.
How do we write that?
Well, it's coming to the council in February for first reading, right? And one second reading.
30 days after that?
Okay, so I'm the same way as you are. We're approximately 30% of the population of Billings. We get less than 20% representation on the council. And Ward 1 council members think that they represent the Heights, but let's see which ones are here tonight. None of them. So I asked Roy and Jennifer and Pam Purinton if they would work to try and get at least Ward 1 split, so you have to have a representative from the rim side of Ward 1 and for the downtown side of Ward 1, so you got two. You can't have both people from the same area of town. The Heights doesn't get any representation. So if we would make like everything above the rims in the yellow here, if that was like A representative and B representative was downtown, then at least the Heights would get 3 representatives on the council. And after further thought, when I'm home, I always think about stuff when I'm not driving around, whatever. But if they did that to every ward in town and they just split it, it didn't have to be equal population, but if they split it so that you could get a representative from this area and a representative from that area and not live in 2 houses apart or whatever, that way you should be able to get better representation across town. And I don't think that there's anything in the charter that would prohibit us from doing that, and it would be a lot more fair because you would get a better cross-section of the wards. And so if we could get Ward 1's members in the Heights, I wouldn't care if Dorothy Lane Park went into Ward 1 as long as they were represented by a representative from the Heights. So we're going to need some people to go down to the city council meeting and do some public comment. And which night is that?
Let me look. But Frank, maybe you could also talk about charter review a little bit, because I think that's something the task force should pay attention to.
Can I also respond to Jackie just a little bit? Because I didn't actually look at what street it was, but I just took a look at the picture and said, people are not going to like that. Because they are not going to feel represented by Ward 1. I do not feel represented by Ward 1. And I'm not but I'm in the city, so I'm okay. But it's, part of the problem is that because the federal law, the Federal Voting Rights Act, requires that each area be within a 5% range. So when we did the school district redistricting a number of years ago, we left the west end and the east end significantly about 5% lower than the other areas, because that's the areas that were growing. So we knew 10 years later they were going to be way out of sync. The state says you want everything within 1%. So then,
no, the city says 1%.
Well, what Gina said was it's the state. And so when you get it 1%, then you get them, what they do is they pick out precincts that have a population number that will get, because what happened is Ward 1 was 20% below Ward 2 as a population in the last 10 years. Because obviously they tore down the trailer court to put up a bank. Yeah, nobody lives at the bank. So Ward 1 was significantly lower in population. So it isn't picking on Dorothy Lane, but it's a problem in the Heights because I think we all feel that we're not very well represented.
So initially, what they had done was taken a chunk of the ward, pushing Ward 1 up into Ward 2, right in the center, and it made more sense to, again, the Alkali Creek, which is in the lower section, that as a physical boundary, that makes sense there. That's where they put Dorothy Lane there. My recommendation was, if they're going to move anything, it would have been off of Main Street instead of off of where it's at now. And I think the numbers are close enough, and we can sure try to make a recommendation to change like that. Or if possible, to leave that in there. We'll be higher in numbers if we're under the 1%. We're near the 1%, they won't care. But, Frank, I did look at yours and talk to some of the council members on the AB ward I gave you and I talked about. The council member I talked to at the time is now they're not willing to do anything now because the election's coming up. They need to do something. And
that's why you're doing the ward changing right now, is because the election's coming up.
And so it'll be tough to get through, but we have a good map that puts it out kind of similar to what they're presenting, just break it A and B. But the difficulty will be to convince the council members to say, yeah, like for instance, Jennifer lives on the east side of Main Street, I live on the west side. For Ward 1 and 2, AB wards wouldn't be a big deal, but then when you start talking about maybe Ward 4 or Ward 5, depending on where those members live, you may have a more difficult time because suddenly they don't live in their ward.
One of them will be coming up for election in every ward.
Right.
So that would be the time to do it, is when the election is coming up. So one might not be able to get to have 2 terms on the council.
Right.
That, you know.
But
nothing's-
what you may do is, what may happen is the one person who's where they're living now, they're not, election's not coming up, and suddenly they have to vacate their ward because they don't live in that.
Right.
So then you're electing 2 council members from that ward. So it
You can
is,
split it the other direction too.
there's a lot of ways you can gerrymander to make it work, right down the middle of the house in one ward, we have.
Yeah. So anyway, you don't know when that's coming to the council. I thought it was like the 2nd Monday in February.
It's just not scheduled yet.
It's not scheduled yet? So we would be needing some people from the Heights to go down and sit there and make public comment on, you know what, the Heights isn't getting fair representation. And when we went to the ward meeting, my first argument is city council would not put any water sports up in the Heights, swimming pool or whatever. We had to have a church build this facility so that the Heights could have some type of a water sports for kids. So that's the very first representation that the Heights is getting taken. And it isn't getting any better, because as the Heights numbers grow up, they just keep moving more to one end. And everybody knows the rims is a barrier in the city of Billings. Everything above the rim should be all considered Heights ward, and if it has to be split in 2 or whatever. But I could live with the AB in Ward 1, or we would have 1 representative in this part, because then we'd at least get 3 representatives for the Heights. That's enough on that. Okay, anybody else got anything they'd like to see us work on, get something done?
Charter review.
What?
I think the task force should understand the charter review process. I think that's a critical part of task forces.
Okay, stand up and tell us about it.
So every 10 years under state law, local governments are required to reevaluate their form of government. And the question goes to the citizens as to whether or not the citizens want to establish a charter review committee. Billings is operated under a charter, which means we have our sort of own local constitution that establishes the scope of government. So the question will go to the voters next year as to whether or not you want to establish a charter review committee to take a look at and recommend amendments to the city's charter. If the public votes to establish a charter review committee, then people can run to be on the charter review committee. So it is an elected group of citizens who then have 2 years to develop a series of potential amendments that would go to the voters in 2026. So this gives you a chance to ask questions like, how many wards should we have in the city? Should we continue to have a city that is predominantly run by an appointed city manager, or should the elected officials have more authority? The general scope and function of government is what's in there. Now, council can also bring amendments to the charter, but this every 10-year process for 2 years, 24, 26, is when the citizens have a chance to step in and say, this form of government isn't quite working for us, or this form of government is working for us. Billings has a pretty unique provision in the charter review that caps mill levies. Overall, that's usually a question for charter review, and then of course there's all the kind of public safety funds and other amendments to that, but scope of government, how mills are levied, how people are represented, those are all identified in our charter, and we are on the eve now of a charter review process. So task forces are really a foundational way for people to understand that better. You can have Dan Clark come in and present on it, or someone else, but I think this is really a place where people should start talking about, is the form of government we have working for us as a community, and if not, what would we like to see happen?
If the council brings something to the charter, the people still have to vote on it. So people still get to vote no matter what change gets done. But I don't know if it's ever been voted to review the charter since the charter went into effect, has it?
Maybe 30 years ago. I mean, it's been a
That's
minute.
about when the charter went in.
40, I think
40 years ago.
40 years ago. Yeah, I think there was one time.
So anyway, it does need a little bit of overhaul, I think, on a few things. So we can work on that and see where we can go. Anybody else? You have something that you'd like to see done in the Heights? Ed, come on.
Okay, get on
Just
here.
one thing, Ed.
No, I don't want to hear anything from me because nobody ever pays attention. Everybody in this room can read your tax return, your tax bill, you know what all that
Now that they
is,
broke-
means, and
Now they broke it out,
I
you see all kinds of stuff.
but y'all know all that kind of stuff. You pay attention to how many mill safety levies are on there. We want 2 more. And then do y'all know what the mill health levy is, or what that does for you?
One for the county?
That's where you're paying $1.4 million a year to the Big Sky Economic Development Group. And I haven't seen a Briggs Stratton Engine Company or Weatherby Firearms or, so I'd like to know, have somebody, the county auditor, come out here at some time, or if you don't want to do it here, come to my house, well, we can do it over there. I want somebody to explain to me, as we're heading down another $100+ million to a great sporting arena over here. I mean, just like how much do we property taxpayers pay every year on a 40-year-old arena down here to keep it operating?
Okay, I got you down. County Auditor Task Force meeting.
So,
We've got 5 of your ideas in the last month's minutes, so I'll move them into this month's minutes as well, so that we,
Well, this is just one of the ones that he wants to see it, so.
but it was in the last.
well, the latest one is, we're gonna rearrange all the roads in downtown, and we're starting out at $7.5 million. What happened to a new jail for $7.5 million? And you think that by rerouting 4th Avenue and 6th Avenue to 2-way, what's it gonna do to you in the afternoons coming home or going to work? So,
Just saying.
good luck getting the city on the move.
I guess everything mentioned is, yeah, I'm wondering about that. Is there a way to get some specific questions to the county auditor as far as, what I'm afraid of is they'll come up and they'll say, yeah, those are all interesting things. And, we don't have 3 hours to sit here and listen to it explain. So what?
Well, what I would suggest is if we get in here and we'll ask him some questions, and then we can send him some questions and have him send answers to us. But let him give his spiel or her spiel. I don't even know who's the county auditor, but let them give their little dog and pony show, and then you can ask them questions while you're here, and then we can give them some questions and ask them to respond to us. But it's gonna take groups like this at this meeting to keep pushing stuff forward and actually getting something done.
What's the latest on the inner belt loop?
Construction starts next month.
What's that?
Construction start next month.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good.
finally.
Frank, you gonna have a groundbreaking ceremony on that?
I don't think we should. We already got our part, our end done.
I think we should.
They're gonna start in the middle, so we might have to get our 4-wheelers.
I got one.
I got one.
They're starting next month. We could probably try and get something going.
Yeah, code enforcement has grown significantly since the last safety levy. I'd like to know what their plan is to improve the city inspections as far as code is concerned.
As far as the code enforcement part,
Yeah.
So are you thinking, do you want to bring Tina in, or do you want to bring Tina and Marshall back?
Tina would be the one to bring in. She's the boss.
I know. So, yeah, that's fine. I have no preference, but I'd like to have somebody come and tell us, what are you gonna do now that you got all these people?
Yeah.
We'd like some results for the money.
Is that in that package? I see
Well,
there's some brochures and stuff.
Yeah. Well, and Tina was our police sergeant for several years, and she's the new code enforcement person. It'd be good to have both of them, since Marshall specifically assigned to
I think one thing since Tina's taken over is now if you call on a complaint, somebody will actually answer the phone. Before it was like, and we'll have somebody call you as soon as they get a chance or something. And I mean, it could be 3 days, it could be a week, and then you make another call, the same thing. But now when you call, at least somebody answers the phone. So that's a big improvement anyway.
I'd like to safety mill levy and what, what's happened, what benefits we've seen, and how that's impacting the Heights. Maybe more on the fire station with I saw my first emergency response vehicle earlier this week or last week. So just an update on.
So who do you want to come up to do that?
Probably.
Huh?
Be the fire chief.
So just as an FYI, the city staff put together a series of presentations that were on Community 7 on police, fire, legal, and code enforcement. You can get those on the city's website. If you click on the public safety link, it pops right up. So you guys can take a look at those and see who you think is most interesting. But I mean, if what you're talking about are the local response units or whatever, then yeah, that'd be the fire chief for that. But I think, Chris or Kevin can do an overview. I mean, it really just depends on what area you want to dive into. But those resources are out there on Community 7 for folks to take a look at it. It's helpful.
So, one of the things that I'm gonna ask you people, how proud of you of the image that's getting portrayed in the city of Billings over this past year? I mean, every week there's a shooting. Sometimes 3 shootings. I think the last time I heard the chief in front of council, he says there's 2 shootings a week. That is by far way more per capita than New York City, and it's about right on par with Chicago. So we're little Chicago now. We need to get something done. I've gone to city council members can tell you how many times I've been there trying to get something done with these pre-releases and parolees. Now the last one, that guy was sentenced in January of 21 to 5 years in the Department of Corrections. That means he should have been there till 2026. Right now we got 2 orphan kids. We got 12 children that are traumatically screwed up for the rest of their life, plus their parents who were at that birthday party, plus those people that own that house. The house is not livable, and they have to pay the expense of getting that back so that they can live in it.
Who's the judge who released him, Frank?
Harris.
No, it's DOC. It was a DOC commit. So it's the Department of Corrections that released it.
And when Scott Twido, the last time I heard him, and I think it was the same night the police chief was there, he says for every one Bozeman gets, Billings gets 180. In 2019, Billings had 680 plus, Bozeman had 8. So if Bozeman got 8 last year, that means Billings got 1,440. After 6 years, 81% of those people are back in jail. And they're sending them here, no money, no nothing.
So is there any way to bring one of the commissioners out here to figure out what they can do to help, or why all these cops keep having to deal with multiple warrants issued and can't do anything about it?
I don't know who would be a better person, a commissioner or Scott Twido.
Scott would be better, but Mark Morris has said.
Commissioner would be, a commissioner would be better, because that's who we're always told to go talk to. Scott Twido doesn't give many answers. He's very vague on stuff when you talk to him.
Well, Mark, I do have an email from Mark Morris. He's out of town, but he said he would be at the next meeting. So he's a new one, so he's not going to have as much information, but he does represent this. County commissioners have to live in a particular area, and he lives in our area.
Because the last time I called in, Austin said that they're not worried about anything going on until they shut down the Mexican border.
I know, and Mark follows John, but DJ?
BJ.
In the root cause, we don't have room in Deer Lodge, and given the governor's budget, put something in place to move in Deer Lodge. So I think something needs to be done immediately. The most immediate thing that I feel like we can do is, this is the time to call Helena and tell them you support that and get something done, because if they don't get something done, it's just, well, I mean.
So they had 2.4 billion, that's billion with a B, surplus. That's the time to build another correction center and start paying their staff so that they're not leaving. in October, I think it was, they closed one wing of the DOC because they didn't have enough people to staff it. Where do you think all those people ended up? Billings, Montana.
Well, maybe we need to develop some other programs too to help folks deal with their mental illness and those types of things.
That's why they're coming here, because we have all the programs.
So I'm just hearing me out, please.
Okay.
Rather than building a building and more buildings, jails, that kind of stuff. A lot of that going over that surplus we've got, they really need to address more of the mental health issues in Montana. And like you say, there's a program for people coming out of prisons and that kind of stuff, and dealing with their real needs. We want to shuffle everybody from one city to another city. That's not gonna help the problem. Or we want to hold a store on someplace. But we do need to develop something for families and kids and adults in terms of them meeting the mental health issues and other things they're going on.
I suggest we take that mental health money, send it to Helena, every bit of it, 100% of it. And then our problems will be over, because they follow the money, okay? So if you want to give more money, that's fine, give it to Helena. We don't need it here, it's not a big problem. I don't mean to be crass, but that's the facts, okay? And if we're gonna deal with the problem, we need to call Helena. We need someone to volunteer to say, here's what we need to support, get it out to the group of us, and start making calls.
And we have at least two people representing the Heights who are working on those issues. I know Tommy Dobry, in the interim committee, they worked hard to get which doesn't address your issues, but to get the salaries up at Deer Lodge, because that's part of the issue. 40% of Deer Lodge is shut down because they can't hire staff. I mean, when you could get more money flipping burgers at McDonald's, you would be nuts to go into a prison. And they can't get the wages up. And Carrie Stevens Crowe is carrying the bill. She's on the committee, has done different tours. Is carrying the bill to get our payment in the jail at our cost. Because right now it's really irritating that the state balanced their budget by refusing to pay the cost of the jail and then put their people here because then we pay for it. That's just.
I think one of the things to consider in this conversation is that there is money in the governor's budget proposed for both prison facilities as well as mental health facilities, but it seems that the trend right now is rather than send a single centralized facility to have more regional facilities. So one of the questions for this group to wrestle with and think about a little bit is if the proposal to expand DOC facilities is a regional prison in Yellowstone County, because the thought is more people would rather live here than in Deer Lodge, so they could do better workforce here. What do people think about that?
I think Belgrade would be a perfect place.
I'm throwing out the conversation.
Question, you said the surplus is how much?
2.4 billion.
And where did that 2.4 billion come from?
Mostly income tax.
Well, if you want money for new facilities, then you draw up legislation and let people vote on it. If I have paid in more money than was required to run this state, I want my tax money back. Then you can address those other things however you want to address them. Because the next time around is, well, we'll just raise Ed's taxes even more, and when we have another surplus, well, we'll spend that on other stuff that we couldn't get past otherwise, see? Was that clear enough? Right?
The surplus came from people moving into the state of Montana that were getting paid higher wages.
So you're saying of that $2 billion, none of that is mine?
No, you paid in, but you didn't pay any more in than you did the last time. Go look at your taxes.
Okay, all right.
And
I just got an escrow account that shows in 9 years my taxes here have doubled. And look at what we've been studying about tonight, senators.
When you say taxes, are you talking city taxes, county taxes? There's a big difference.
Okay.
Your property tax, only 12% goes to Helena. 12%, that's it.
And what do I get for that?
What
What am I getting for my city taxes?
Okay, you guys carry that on. That's your problem.
You gotta keep wanting more. It's time to have measurements of what we're doing. The money that gets spent right here for stuff, there is never a follow-up to measure is, was that $150,000 that we spent downtown on some issue or hired a artist in residence? How do we measure where that, what the effect of that money is?
That's not the way it operates. They do all these surveys, they put them on a shelf, and then in 5 years, when you're gonna go farther, you do another survey, because that one's outdated. I spent 4 years here, I know how it works.
Sounds good.
Harold?
You're happy, I'm happy.
So you mentioned, some of the facilities, rehab, whether it's drugs, violent offender. Right now, we say, when money becomes available, we in Billings say, send that money here, and when we get that money, that means all those people that you were talking about earlier come to our city. And so if we're gonna have somebody come and talk, I think we need, not the next one, because session will still be going on, but we need a senator who's involved in that stuff. We need Scott Whiteoak. We need a commissioner, because as a community, we say bring those people here. I mean, right now, sober living housing, there were some articles in Ohio. It's a great moneymaker. You can get 10 residents, the state pays the money. You can get
Only for 3 months.
Yeah, but people are doing that, so we do that. We do it for ourselves here in Billings.
It's such a great moneymaker, there's 40 plus in Billings, and then next, and there's only 7 more in the whole rest of the state.
Right, but that's what I mean, that we do it to ourselves. So what people, I'm up for rehab. I don't know that we can lock everybody away long enough or build enough prisons to lock everybody away for, especially for the drug issues that we have going on throughout the state. But that being said, we keep raising our hand when they say, let's give somebody a rehab place in Billings.
But if that guy would have been in jail at least for 2 years out of this 5, that would still
And I'm not saying more jail space isn't part of the answer, but the reason he was here in Billings is because people in Billings said, bring the guy here.
He grew up here. I talked to somebody that used to work at the police department, he was a troubled kid since he was.
But he got sent here for part of the program, and you're right, he had ties here. But the 1,400 people compared to other cities that are coming here, most of them don't have ties here, they're getting dumped here. And we can all say we're against them dumping those people here, but then our city planners say, this is an opportunity, passages, women's prison. I mean, those are things that Billings actively went out and said, let's have it here. Hindsight maybe wasn't the best idea in the world, but we're continuing to ask for that grant money from these billions of dollars that they're going to be kicking out now. And we're going to add to our own problem, I'm afraid. So who can we get to come and talk here to, let's spread this around the state? I mean, I'm on Bozeman to have someone love that we're getting these shootings.
We'd have to get somebody that's up in the legislature, so that wouldn't happen until like May or June or something.
But, Jennifer, when is the meetings at the library, not the library, MSU for the legislators? Because anyway.
It's
every other Thursday.
It's on the front page of the.
So every other Thursday you can go there. And I don't know, is it interactive at all?
Yeah, it's a two-way
So that is
teleconference.
something that you can, at that time, you can get to the legislators right now and bring those kind of issues.
Oh, they're on their break session then?
No.
They're on late lunch.
Oh.
Yeah,
So-
I put it in here, if you haven't gone, it's really worthwhile, because even if you don't testify, you get a lot of the Yellowstone County legislators will come in, people will ask some questions, they'll testify, they'll give you feedback. So it's just a really good way to get a little bit of sense of what's going on in the legislature, and they have lunch available, so.
As well as, as the task force takes a position on something, and you guys vote and direct the president to tell the legislators how you guys feel, that also carries a lot of weight. So if there's any particular issues that you want the task force to represent the Heights, make sure you do that, because that's important to hear that an individual, the Heights Task Force, is now taking this position, and this is what we'd like to see done. So that goes a long way with the legislators as well as city council and county commissioners.
All right, we beat that, we're on the bunch, anything else?
Well, a related issue that we had talked about is having Chief St. John come in. He does have a good presentation, a good quarterly presentation on the data from public safety. I think in January, he's gonna have an annual presentation, am I right, to city council?
Not in January, no, January's over.
Oh, okay, you're right, it is. When did that happen? So anyway, to me, it seems like that once he gets that annual presentation in, it's worth bringing him in to talk to us.
So another thing that I'm pursuing, that nobody else has anything, is I'm trying to get the state, Montana Department of Transportation, to actually make Main Street habitable. If you were using a walker or a wheelchair, try wheeling down the sidewalks along Main Street right now. Can't do it, there's so much sand and gravel on there. And when there's snow, they put that windrow of snow on there, and where do the buses stop? On Main Street. There's a lot of old people live on both sides of Main Street that use the bus. They can't get to the benches because it's just a big windrow of snow. And when I talked to, I think his name is Mike Taylor, he's going to be the new regional director down at MDC. He said that the sidewalks along Main Street are not the property owner's responsibility like the rest of the sidewalks in town because that's a state highway. So I'm trying to work with him to get something done. So I went down to see him just last week and I says, okay, let's have a talk. And he goes, well, I don't have much time. I'll give you 10 minutes. And I says, is there some way we can get that gravel off them sidewalks? I says, try and go down it with a walker. You can't do it. He says, well, I don't know if we got the money to do it or if we got the equipment or whatever. And I go, all it would take is a John Deere lawn tractor with a broom on the front and just run it up there and just sweep it off into the curb. And then when they come and clean the street, they can do it. So he's supposed to be getting a hold of me again. And if he doesn't, I'll be getting a hold of him. I don't know, Frank, who was doing that, but there was a couple of individuals with vests on and blowers. They cleaning out King Avenue, the center median, from one end to the other. That would have been the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think King Avenue is a state road.
No, it is, but the agreement was, I think, the city maintains it. For whatever reason, that was before.
So, anyway, that's another thing I'm working on. It's just outrageous the way there was an old gal one day, she was trying to get through that, this is a couple of years ago, she was trying to get through with a walker and that on the sidewalk by the corner of Twixel and Main. I pulled my pickup off to the side, put my flashers on, asked her where she was going. She said, I'm going down to the clinic. I got to get to the bus bench. And I go, how about if I just give you a ride down to the clinic? So I gave her a ride down there, and she said she had a ride to get back. So I'm sure LED has a bobcat with a PTO in the front and a sweeper. It would take them maybe 3 hours, take them a half a day to go the length and back down. Now, the thing that would be tough is the snow. If you get a lot of snow, because that windrow gets pretty big, and they can't push it back into the curb. I understand that because the water's got to go someplace, but they should be able to at least blow like a 2 or 3 foot path and go around the park benches anyway. It's all going to go on the street anyway when it rains. Yeah. All right, anybody got anything else?